tumekuandalia msimu. Unangojea? Anyore. Twende nikuchinje.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
This is KTN News.
Good evening and welcome back to Checkpoint. Tonight on the show, I'm hosting the ICT Cabinet Secretary, Joe Musheru. I thank you all for taking the time, those who have, to tweet in. So I want to take some time to read a little bit of what you're saying. Kouko, you say, ask the CS why implementation of e-government services is slow and poorly integrated. For instance, why should a birth certificate take more than 3 months? Why do I have to apply for services on e-citizen, then carry the hard copies to the physical offices? Yes.
So these are procedural. There are laws that we have in place which didn't take into account technology. We're in the process of revising a lot of the laws because, for instance, if it's a birth certificate, there was a very clear laid out procedure which you have to follow. If you don't follow that procedure, for instance, if you don't take the hard copy or if you don't take a photo, some of these things will not be done.
Yeah.
We're in the process of reviewing the laws so that we can make this a lot more efficient and faster. They should just bear with us for now, but we are working on it.
Yeah. Mkenya Shuja says, this is a waste of resources. Let them start by computerizing police stations. If fingerprints are of no value currently because there is no consolidated database, computers and skilled police to use it, where is the value of getting additional data? It's just looting from government.
Consolidated database is what we're doing. So you have a single source of truth with your ID, which then the police stations can use. As you know, right now we're registering the police already. Once we finish, then we'll start with the citizens. So I think he's misguided in one way. We are in the process of making sure that we have a full database so that when your fingerprints then have been taken, these services we're talking about are not just health, we're talking of security, we're talking of education. It's in all areas. And therefore, it's going to be more efficient, more transparent. So when you go to the police station, you're not going to have a lot of problems. You'll give your fingerprints or they'll take your photograph and they're able to give you a service, which means it will be recorded in the system and the timelines begin to count. So people cannot stop giving you services. It will be more efficient to get services. There's an audit trail. It will be quicker. So we'll be better off.
Yeah.
It's just that it takes time. And right now, with the disparate databases that we have, we're not able to be efficient.
Drex Dalla is countering your point to say this is not a valid reason to be having all my biometric identifiers. What if I don't need those services? Is all this for security reasons is the question.
It is not all for security reasons, but as government, we have a constitution we have to uphold, which says we must take care of our citizens. So we have your information. As I mentioned, we're not taking, for instance, your DNA. DNA is used primarily for comparison. But there are places where you want services. For instance, you're probably going to go into buildings, and the buildings need to ensure they know who you are in terms of security. But you shouldn't be leaving all your data. You should be able to, either through a photograph or through your biometrics, be able to be identified, but the information still remains safely in the database, and you're allowed to continue with your process. So there's no money being wasted here.
Yeah.
This is really important. We want to be a knowledge-based society. We are using technology and moving to the next phase.
Yeah.
As a country, we must ensure our citizens not only have identification, we're going into addresses because, again, you can't have financial services or e-commerce and many of the other services that are now happening without this technology. So all Kenyans must be digital.
Yeah. There's Gadara here, Patrick. He says, what the CS is saying about the amendments to the Registration of Persons Act is pretty scary and disingenuous. The idea is selling that GOK is prevented from providing services by the absence of a unique identifier. Doesn't hold.
I've not said we're prevented from offering services. I'm saying we want to make sure we're providing these services more efficiently, more openly, to ensure there's no corruption. We want to ensure that everybody can see what we're doing. And to be able to do that, then everybody needs to be able to have a Huduma number, which allows them to easily come and get services.
Yeah.
But we're not saying today we're not offering any services. We are offering services. But we need to be efficient. We need to move into the 21st century. We need to ensure we're computerizing and using technology in a way that works for us.
That works for everybody.
And that is why we're doing this.
Joseph Mosoti, a great session and contribution from the CS. However, we must learn from the Facebook experience and be extremely vigilant on data protection. That is a concern at the back of your mind, that we do not get to a point where this is a whole scandal a few years from today.
And which is why I said for data protection is primarily for the private citizens.
Okay.
You know, we already have your passport details, we have your ID details, birth certificate details, but those are already protected by law. But the data protection is the details. For instance, when you go to a building, that security guard has a lot of information about you for you to be able to access. How do they manage that information? How accessible is it? The Law Society recently lost a computer with a lot of data of their lawyers. This, how they handle and manage this data is very, very important, which is why the data protection and privacy law will ensure that it's very clear how the the private sector is going to be handling citizens' data, private data. Government already has those safeguards in place. We have to, be sworn in. We have to swear in to ensure that we're protecting the Constitution and the citizens. So it's not the case with the private sector. So Facebook is a private company. And yes, they had the issues, but government has the responsibility and investment to ensure we not only secure the data, but provide the best services we can to our citizens.
You've definitely attracted a lot of feedback, so that's why I was taking some time to just read some of those questions to you. There's one that I saw a little bit earlier. So he tweeted, so I wrote it down because I knew it would be tricky to find it now. He said that every GOK website, because we're talking about digitization across the board in government especially, this site is not secured and has possible viruses, don't proceed. He says is the message he keeps getting when he tries to access GOK websites.
So it's not every website, it's some websites. I have seen that also myself. It's just the certificates and renewal of the certificates. We've taken time in some of those cases, but we've rectified for most of them, and we'll ensure right now we're going through consolidation of ICT across government for procurement and management of all the services. We've had different ministries working on ICT on their own. Now we're centralizing this through the ICT authority, and this will allow us to then provide the security that's needed, the certificates needed to ensure that you don't get those insecurity messages. But it doesn't mean that the website is insecure. It just means it's not encrypted, so be careful what information you're giving. But it's something that we're rectifying actually urgently.
So talk to me about a JIRA program, because unemployment is also an issue here. And you have, we're now in the time of age, young people, phones, technology, interacting with that. So how can this, and as you talk to us about this program, be a platform to actually get employment, get paid?
So we have a web portal, ajiradigital.go.ke, where as government, we've been working to train and provide support for Kenyans who are interested in working online or using technology to connect them to work. So what Ajira does is, government itself doesn't produce jobs, doesn't give jobs, but can be able to orchestrate the industry so that different parts of government, private sector are able to provide jobs. So for example, CJ was talking about the digitization of court processes, the proceedings. When the recordings are done, you then need to transcribe those recordings, and you may also need to then translate them. That is work that can be given to many people at once. So you get a recording, break it into different bits, give it to people, they transcribe and translate, bring it back, stitch it together, and this creates a lot of jobs. The other day I was at EPZ, and I found many young people who are already working online, providing services for some of the global logistics companies. The top logistics companies are using our young people here and providing them with work. We have many that are offering digital jobs online, whether it's Upwork, whether it is Amazon's Mechanical Turk, Freelancer, and so on. So many of these jobs are there, and we have right now hundreds of thousands of Kenyans already working. It seems that one of the challenges where they don't want to be known is that they believe taxes are going to be an issue if they get recorded. So the ones we know right now are over 400,000 that have actually acknowledged and are working. And so what we're doing is we're creating the constituency innovation hubs. Now we have over 96 already in place across the country.
So what's in these hubs?
So in the hubs, we're providing free Wi-Fi, we're providing devices, and we're providing training. So that people are trained. We have trained over 450 trainers of trainers who are out there training people on how to get online, bid for this work and actually be able to use these platforms. We are also working on getting businesses to start posting their work online on different platforms. This week we actually launched, it was a global launch of a company called iBuild. And what they're doing is that at the moment we've got about 2 million construction workers, but only 50,000 are recorded by NCA. So what they want to do is actually get all 2 million on a platform, and wherever you are, if you want to build a house, you want to add an extension or something, you would go onto this app, you put in the request of what you want, and all those that are registered will be able to now get queries. They can be able to submit quotations, they can be able to submit for job requests and so on. So we just want to digitize the job process, and that's being managed right now through the ajiradigital.go.ke website.
.go.ke, so you can look it up and see how it works out. Before I read a few more comments, let's talk about your, because we were talking a little bit earlier on this data protection, or rather the registration that's going to be taking place. And there's an interministerial committee on this that's chaired by Dr. Matiang'i.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about your colleague, because he was just also recently named the National Development Implementation and Communication Committee Chair. He's also the CS, of course, Interior National Government. And you've seen a few of the stories we were covering earlier. And there's been debate around the kind of responsibility and work that the president is taking his direction. I wonder how that matrix is working out in cabinet, if you'd speak to it, because some analysts have argued, okay, if this one CS is getting everything, Mr. Fix-It, is it lack of confidence in the colleagues, or is it the person who is working? How do you see it?
I find the debate actually quite interesting. So first of all, it's the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government.
Correct.
That's the title of the ministry. So I'm not sure why there seems to be this challenge. And anyway, most of us have been in school, and prefects are appointed in school. So what's the big deal about
so he's the cabinet prefect?
A prefect being appointed? We serve at the pleasure of the president. I serve under the pleasure of the president. If he has felt that this is the way to go, we will go that way. But it's not that anyone has been sidelined. It means we are all going to be still meeting and working together, only that we're going to have a chair. So I don't know all these politics. I know that we're going to get our work done, and that's what we need to do. So we're putting our heads down.
Because the president...
So I have no political answer to this, except that, we just get our work done.
But also a president who on his last term is keen on securing his legacy. And it appears he felt that was not being given the attention it deserved and needed somebody who's seen to be no nonsense. Do you agree with that kind of a sentiment?
There's some things that are above my pay grade. And so I will not speak too much about or speculate about the president and what he's thinking. He appointed me, and as he appointed the rest of cabinet, and he told us he has an objective. This is what he wants us to do. And he's told us, here's a committee. Guys, work together. This is your prefect. Let's do that.
Well, his prefect has a lot on his plate. NTSA as well now is there. So even for some Kenyans, the concern would purely be, will he, because too much also that you stretch and you're not giving then 100%.
No, he has also the committee. We are all together. I think he's not without resources. People are making it seem like it's impossible. No, I think this is normal. Even in a board of a company, you create subcommittees, you create committees. So I don't know, it's not, for me, it's not as political as everybody is making it to Cabinet still exists. So what's this big deal?
Kazi endelea.
Kazi inaendelea, which is the important thing.
Philip has tweeted and is saying, the Ajira concept works. I work online since 2011. Countries like Philippines and India are good at this. Kenya leads Africa in the number of people working online. We need a legal framework to recognize us, and we will gladly pay our taxes.
I'm very happy. So first, we've got a website where people are registering so that we know who you are. We are not taking you to KRA because that seems to be one of the main challenges. But today, you pay about 5%. And with the 5% tax that you're paying, you now get NSSF, you get NHIF, and you're able to even use now your data to be able to go to a bank and actually get a loan. It means you formalize as a person. You're now working, even though it's digital work and it is online, it's now formal.
So what do you make of this? He says we need a legal framework to recognize us.
It exists. And I think what happens, if I understand him, is that there are people who don't understand these people working online. So some parents feel that maybe someone is doing drugs because you're always behind your computer and you seem to be able to pay your rent and seem to be able to do this. So I think it's just what we're doing as government to make sure we're letting people know that there's work being done online. So if you're seeing your kids or people working at home, they're actually doing legitimate work. Yeah. Online work is real work.
Yeah.
I think that's where he's going. But we're in the process of making that work, as well as ensuring that people don't fear coming out and being trained so that they can be able to get this work.
Okay. Rosemary Amondi, also, why is the data research and relevant policy to support what Musharu is saying about the DNA database? There's a lot of questions around that still. Would you care to respond to that?
I don't understand the question about the DNA database. What
data research and relevant policy to support what you're saying on the collection of the data that will be taking place? Perhaps not.
So we're not collecting DNA data,
which you already are.
So it's difficult to answer that. But we're giving a unique ID, a Huduma number, to every Kenyan, so that they can have services openly, transparently. It will make life better for everybody.
As we bring this to a close, you make your closing remarks. There's Dennis Nyongesa here who's saying the government has implemented IFMIS, IEBC systems failed. IEBC is independent. The CCTV systems seem to be dead. What hope do we have that this time round it will succeed with the people registration system? And perhaps a minute to IFMIS, because we have had CS Rotich here and we saw the audit report talking about the serious loopholes around that system that was supposed to make management, of and how funds in government move from one to the other more efficiently, but we've seen a lot of leakages. So if you could speak to that.
So I'll start with this. It seems like these systems are not working. For the security systems, the security of this country has improved tremendously.
Right.
The kind of response you saw happening at 14 Riverside was because these technologies are working. You're able to trace and see where people went. And that's why there was very quick response and action. The command center, people were calling from the hotels. They call the police, and the police are calling them back from the site. I mean, this implementation, these things worked. If you was able to listen and hear some of the stories that were given, that investment has paid off, and has paid off in a big way in terms of the kind of support that we've given. If I come to IFMIS, many of the people that have been taken to court is because the records are there in IFMIS that have shown this is what so-and-so did. If we had the old system where it was only cash and there are no records, then it would be very hard to actually prove some of these corruption matters.
But see, to that point, for instance, on NYS, I'll give that example. Even what's been investigated now is what, I think 400 million. We're talking about 8 billion. So that if IFMIS shows all of this footprint, why are we not seeing the 8 billion? And why isn't DPP then taking these people on 8 billion instead of 400 million? So there's still that money that has gone missing, and this system that those transactions have taken place in. So
two things. One, the DPP has the evidence and they have their process of how they will take it to court. So you're talking about what has been delivered in court. The data, the information is there within the systems so that it can actually create the audit trails that are required to be able to manage whatever the DPP now decides taking forward.
Right.
So it's not that the systems don't work. It's that now there's a process. Once it's taken from IFMIS, how does the DPP now deal with that information and manage it?
All right. Many thanks for making time for us. A lot of the questions that have come in, I'm sure you will